Thank you so much for joining us on another awesome episode of Bioenergetics Beat. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And this episode is brought to you today by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better based life in your hands and on your wrist. And you're going to want to make sure to stick around to the very end because we have a very special giveaway. So you're not going to want to miss 1 second of this guest anyway. He's like a personal hero of mine. I've been following him for over 10 years. It's always so much fun when I go back through my Facebook memories and see all the things all the brilliant stuff that you put out that I share. But it's been over a decade. But anywho,
Wow.
with no further ado, Sachin Patel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather. It's such an honor to be here. I'm so excited. And I know that this has been a decade in the making. So let's make it count. Let's knock it out of the park together.
Absolutely. And it's been so much fun, following you over the past 10 years and seeing the evolution of everything. But you've always just been such a beautiful, like direct truth teller. And I think that's why I've always resonated with your work, is because you don't hold any punches back. But you're not mean either. But you're just so direct and it comes from the heart. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into this line of work? What inspired you to be Sachin Patel and do the type of work that you're doing in the world?
Thank you. I'll start by saying this, just to comment and piggyback off what you said. There's an option that you give people. You can either give them tough love or they can live a tough life. And when presented with the option, most people choose tough love. So I like to give it to them the way it is, in a kind and compassionate way. And I would say that's been an evolutionary process for me, because I didn't always have the wordsmithing and the intellect and the emotional intelligence to express myself the way I do now. And so it has been a work in progress, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm still not done. And many days it feels like I'm just getting started. So to answer your question, my journey starts many, many moons ago. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My first job was actually a barber shop that I started in my parents' garage. So that gene has been in me from the very beginning. And then in high school, I always got good grades. Academics came natural to me. I think it was really emphasized in my household. And I thought I was going to be a computer engineer because I love software. I love logic. I love when you can put in a piece of code and it works exactly as you encoded it. And what I realized over time, and what I realize now, is the body's the same way. And we are both hardware and software. So my first career in health was as a chiropractor, where I was focusing a lot on the hardware, focusing on the mechanics, focusing on the muscles and the joints and the ligaments and the tendons and all the things that help us move. And 2 years into practice, I ended up on the news in a good way. They did a story about us at the practice we were working in, because we were getting great results with soft tissue, again, hardware. And after that news story aired, we had a whole bunch of people call our office, and only one of those people had elbow pain. And her elbow pain was caused by an autoimmune condition known as rheumatoid arthritis. So everyone else had some other chronic, debilitating, degenerative health condition that I had no idea how to fix, because these were not structural or hardware issues. They were internal signaling issues, as I later came to learn. They were software issues. And so just like a computer has a keyboard, which is hardware, it also has software, which is what happens when you press the key. And that's the part that you can't see. That's where all the magic actually happens. In fact, Steve Jobs says that, you can compare two companies. Like, you can compare an iPhone and a Samsung phone, and the difference is going to be very minuscule if you just compare the hardware. But the software can be exponentially better. And when I realized that, that really clicked for me, because you and I are not very different. I mean, you're a female, obviously, but genetically, me and a counterpart male are not very different genetically. The hardware isn't very different, but the software, right, can be exponentially different. And so 2 years into practice, I'm on the news. I get all these people coming in. I can't help any of them. So I go from being, the talk of the town to being like what I felt like was a failure, because I didn't know what to do with these people. And so what I realized through that process is neither did anyone else. These people had gone to every doctor. They tried every medication. I was even calling my wife, who's a pharmacist at the time, asking her, like, what do I do for these people? These are the medications they're on. And she's like, they're doing everything conventionally that they can. So these people were struggling with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. I'm sure some people had Lyme disease, but I had no idea or no clue what to do. And around that time, I started receiving emails. So thank God for spam, or whatever you want to call it, about a chiropractor in South Carolina, Dr. Ron Grisanti, who was sharing his case studies of psoriasis and arthritis and autoimmune conditions and fibromyalgia. And he was actually helping these people by identifying the root cause. And that, to me, at that time, I had never heard of that, but it's called functional medicine or lifestyle medicine or root cause medicine, and bespoke medicine, whatever we call it, doesn't really matter. But it was getting and targeting the root cause, not just from a hardware standpoint, but from a software standpoint, and working on the cell signaling, working on the internal chemistry of the person to help them feel their best. So going through that program, I got a questionnaire from the company, and I started giving my chiropractic patients that questionnaire. And lo and behold, they thought I was the most amazing chiropractor, but what they didn't realize is that they still had all these other chronic health challenges, digestive issues, liver issues, gallbladder issues, adrenal dysfunction, thyroid dysfunction. And they didn't even think, obviously, to bring that to my attention, because even when we give them our intake form, it's just like circle where it hurts, right? And they focus on the hardware of what's going on with them. And so after giving people this questionnaire, I realized, oh my God, here I am thinking I'm helping people, but am I really helping them if I'm not looking at the whole version of them? And so I ended up, long story short, I ended up leaving that job, leaving that role in that company, because I didn't want to be a soft tissue practitioner anymore. I wanted to work more in a functional medicine, lifestyle medicine capacity with people. Worked for another company. And then from there, I ended up starting Living Proof Institute. And so we're celebrating about 12 years now, which is kind of cool. And started off in Cincinnati, Ohio, then moved to Toronto, opened up my own practice, so running two practices at one point. And then it caught the attention of my colleagues, and they were like, dude, what are you doing? I want to know more about this. And so that led to me coaching practitioners. And then about 4 years ago now, I discovered the power of breath work and breathing. And that took me on a whole different trajectory. So, I'm still the same old me, but I'm just like, just like the earth, just layering on top of layering on top of layering, and picking up new skills and trying to apply them as best as I can. And my search has always been for what is the zenith of simplicity and sophistication. I've always been looking for that one thing. Steve Jobs said, and Da Vinci said, that the greatest sign of sophistication is simplicity. So my search led me far and wide. I tried and learned all kinds of different techniques and things. And what I realized, that the simplest thing, the answer to many of our chronic health challenges and acute health challenges, is literally right under our nose, and it's how we breathe. So I'm still a chiropractor, still a functional medicine practitioner, still a lifestyle medicine practitioner. But now I've added breathing, and now I feel like that's made me really a practitioner that can help anyone, anywhere, at any time in the world. So it's given me this amazing gift, which I want to share with everyone today, to be able to impact people instantly, no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing, in a positive way.
Absolutely. So obviously people now why I fell in love with him the way that I have. Like, he opened it up with this most beautiful, simplistic, you can have a tough life or you can have tough love. Like, where do you come up with this stuff? It's always so brilliant. But how did you jump from computer into chiropractic? Like, I still didn't see that bridge.
Oh, thank you. So uh, here's a funny story. I became obsessed. So I don't know if you've ever done any coding before. Maybe some of our listeners have, but it's basically you write a line of code and you give a specific instruction, and then you press enter, and the computer then does exactly what you tell it to do. So it's like you can take this piece of machinery, and if you know how to communicate to it with very precise instructions and syntax, you can do amazing things. And it doesn't talk back to you. It does exactly what you tell it to. And here's the other thing, is that you will know instantly if what you do works or doesn't work. So I love that short feedback loop. And so I became obsessed. I would literally write code in my head everywhere I would go. I would basically go inwards and I would just start cracking codes and writing programming language. And I'm like, do I really want to live the rest of my life like this? And I love sports. I love movement. Our family was very holistic. I didn't even realize how holistic we were until I grew up and realized that we were a holistic, without even realizing. It was like an unconscious holistic practice. We ate, most of our meals were made at home. They were all made with fresh ingredients. Like my mom cooked them all. So we had like a very like positive upbringing in that regard. And, so I was debating, do I go into computer science or do I go into health sciences? And so I chose health sciences. I took some computer classes, which were my highest grades in all of university. But I decided that I didn't want to sit in front of a computer all day, which is kind of ironic because that's what I
Right.
do
That's
now.
what we do.
um, but so that's where the path came. So I could have gone in either direction. I could have become a barber, which was my first business. I could have become a computer programmer or engineer, or I could have become a practitioner, which is where I led down. And another interesting fun fact is I won my woodworking award in high school. So I love working with my hands, and I love that was something else. If you told me that I had to give up everything and become a woodworker or a carpenter, then I would be okay. Where do I sign up for that? Because I love doing things like that as well.
That's incredible. And it's funny with breath work when we talk about the simplicity of it. I remember when I first learned about it about 2 years ago, and I remember dismissing it at first, like silly people, what are you talking about breath work? Like I breathe every damn day. And if it was such a great thing, why am I not feeling any better? But turns out I was, shallow chest breathing, right? Which was keeping me in fight or flight, which was keeping my nervous system jacked up, which was keeping me from digesting my food properly and not healing all the way. That's why I kept relapsing when I would, functional practitioners were so great at following the diet and taking the supplements, but I never addressed that nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
right, of having a chronic illness and early childhood trauma. And so that's why I absolutely, I love all the free stuff that God has given us, right? Like between the light and the breath work, and we got cold therapy, like all these amazing things that are readily available to us and that are free.
Yeah, my litmus test now, if I introduce any new therapy or intervention, is that it has to be embarrassingly simple. Like cold exposure, embarrassingly simple. Breathing correctly, embarrassingly simple, right? Surrounding yourself with community and the right people. I mean, these things are, as close to free as they can get, and they're super simple. And that's why, like, I dismissed breathing for a long time as well. It's funny because sometimes we might be exposed to something, but we may not be ready for it,
Mm.
right? And when the student is ready, the master appears. I remember one of my patients, this is, we're talking 13 years ago, handed me a copy of the autobiography of a yogi.
Mm.
And at that time, I was so immature that I looked at the cover and I'm like, this guy looks like this just doesn't speak to me, right? And then once you mature and you read it, you're like, oh my god, like where's this book been my entire life? And so breathing is kind of like that, right? It's like, I know um I should, if this was important, I should have known it. If this was important, how come in all the training that I've ever taken, nobody's ever talked about it? How can I go through university and be a health major and nobody talks about it? How can I go through chiropractic school and nobody talks about it? How can I go through all this functional medicine training and nobody talks about it? Like, how is that possible? If it was important, somebody would be talking about it. And so that's what I'm here to do. I'm like, nobody's been talking about it. So let me start talking about it and see what happens. And it turns out that people love learning about this when they hear it in a specific way. So what I feel like I've done and hopefully comes through today is found a way to explain the benefits of breathing in such a simple yet profound way, in a way that's easy for people to apply and difficult for them to ignore. So, after today, if people just uh, become a little bit more aware, or hopefully a lot more aware of how they breathe, they'll realize that this entire time up until now, they've been a supercar without a steering wheel. And so the breath is the steering wheel of the nervous system. And in fact, it's also the brakes and the gas pedal. So imagine having a supercar and never knowing that there is a steering wheel and a gas pedal and a brake and trying to drive it, right? So we can unlock different aspects of our own health and healing and discovering who we are once we learn how to breathe correctly.
Absolutely. And I forgot to say this in the beginning, but we try to tie each theme to each frequency that we have here. And so this one is on stress and anxiety. And like I said, breath work is huge. And I alluded a little bit to that fight or flight, autonomic nervous system, and we'll dive in deeper to that. But we're going to stop right now for a quick pause and a commercial break. Don't go anywhere. You're going to want to stay with us because, like I said, we have an awesome giveaway at the end. And obviously, we're just getting into the fun stuff here. So stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
There's a new word for wellness, Nikki. Nikki, the bioenergetic wearable designed to help you feel better and perform better. Other wearables just track how you're doing. Nikki is about helping you do better. Nikki takes bioenergetic frequency science to a new level and onto your wrist. Nikki technology carries frequencies into the body to organize and optimize cellular network, the trillions of cells that communicate by light and frequencies to keep us alive and feeling our best. Physical and mental trauma can upset cellular communication, and Nikki is designed to help restore it. Touch the Nikki screen to choose the frequency you want for what you want to do and how you want to feel. Low energy? Touch energy for a boost. Stressed out? Stress and anxiety is to calm you down. Aches and pains? Choose Nikki Pain. Nikki has frequency sets intended to fight allergies, strengthen immunity, and keep viruses and bacteria at bay. If you're going on a trip and want to arrive fresh and ready to enjoy your vacation, touch travel. And if you want to wake up ready to go, Nikki Nighttime is for overcoming daytime trauma while you sleep. Every Nikki comes loaded with a full inventory of frequency set, including pain, energy, travel, immune, stress and anxiety, viruses and bacteria, allergies, insomnia, daytime bundles, nighttime bundles. Nikki puts a personal wellness center in your hands and on your wrist. Be better. Do better. We are Nikki.com.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again. Let's dive in deeper on the nuts and bolts, why and how did this come about, and then we'll have Sachin here show us some techniques and take us through a little mini breath work, if that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually a few parts to my breathwork journey, because breath is such a broad topic, and it's not just narrowed down to our nervous system as an example. That's one of the powerful things that it can do for us, but it can actually allow us to have out of body experiences when we do different types of breathing techniques. The way we breathe also shapes our face. It shapes our airways. It shapes our facial structure, our dental structure. It informs our nervous system and our immune system. And it plays a huge and very important role in our consciousness and our awareness and our ability to be present. So I'll tell you where my journey into breathing starts. It actually started about 4 years ago. And a friend of mine, Jordan, invited me to a breathing class. It was a Wim Hof breathing class. And Wim Hof has been all the rage for many years. And so I'm like, okay, let me try this thing out. And it was just a guy's day out. So I get there and it's February and he's like, bring your swim trunks. I'm like, what do you mean bring my swim trunks? And he's like, trust me, just bring your swim trunks. So I'm like, okay. So we get there and I met who later became my breathwork mentor, Giovanni, and he's at the class. There's about 20 other people there. And he's taking us through his breathing experience through Wim Hof. And by the end of it, I was able to hold my breath for about 3.5 minutes. And I had never done that before. And I was just kind of blown away. I was like, oh my God, like, how cool is that with just about 20 minutes of breathing that I'm able to go from, not being able to hold my breath for just a couple of minutes. And now I'm at 3.5 minutes. And then they're like, okay, so put on your swim trunks. We're going outside. And we're talking February, Toronto. So it's freezing outside. And we go outside and there's this little kiddie pool. with ice and water in it. Okay. So it's a little pool for kids. And he's like, okay, we're all going to go in for 90 seconds. And I had never done cold exposure, none of this stuff before, but I knew it wasn't going to kill us. So everyone's, we're practicing our different breathing techniques to keep ourselves warm. We're cheering the other person on. So there's huge like community component and this huge dopamine rush right before you step in. And then you're in the pool and it feels like glass all over your body if you've never done this before. And then you're just trying to stay calm. You're just trying to stay in your breath. And I got out, and then there's no towel, so we had to like literally dry ourselves off by raising our body temperature. And so there's breathing techniques that you can do for that. So we go in like we're totally like awake and alive and just feel amazing. And so that was my first breathwork experience. My second breathwork experience was more of a deeper dive, more of a ceremonial breathwork experience where you're able to get into altered states of consciousness and rewire and reprogram your subconscious mind. You can release traumas, you can re-experience beautiful events that you've had in your life and make sense of challenges that you might have and actually solve and resolve problems. So it's a great way as an alternative to plant medicine. You can use breath to get into those altered states. I describe breathing as taking the staircase to the mountaintop versus taking the elevator to the mountaintop. So you can get to the same place, you just do it a slightly different way. And then my third experience with breathing actually came when my son went to the dentist. So growing up, he had, he's a healthy kid. He's always taken really good care of himself. We've taken really good care of him and vice versa. And the first time we went to the dentist, we were so sure that we're going to get a clean bill of health. I'm joking when I say this, but I'm like thinking, okay, Deepa, wear a nice, wear a nice top, and I'm going to wear a nice, outfit, and because they're going to take a picture of us and they're going to put it on the wall because we're going to have like the best oral health for our child possible. So we get there, and of course I'm joking, but we get there, and turns out like they come back to us with bad news. They're like, good news, bad news. So good news is, or bad news is that your son has a ton of cavities. Like the good news is they're in his baby teeth. So that was a sense of relief, but we're like, what the hell? Like, how does he have cavities? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he doesn't eat junk food. He's never had McDonald's in his life. He's never had a soda, as far as I know. So we're just like, what the heck? Like, how does that make sense? And we didn't know. We didn't even try to figure it out. We're just like, whatever, they're going to fall out. No big deal. And then fast forward a few years later after that, we go to the dentist, and the dentist takes an x-ray of his teeth because they wanted to see how his adult teeth were coming in. And they're like, oh, we have a problem here. There's no room in his upper palate for his teeth to come in. So we're going to have to pull some teeth. And I was like, the chiropractor in me, like immediately all the bells and flags and everything start going off. I'm like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with him. Maybe we need to figure out why this happened, but it doesn't make sense that we've got to pull out his teeth out of his face at such a young age. I'm like, I never had this problem. My parents never had this problem. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And it turns out that we went to 3 different orthodontists, and all of them said the same thing. And right around that time, I started hearing about James Nestor's book. So we're talking, 2020. And so I listened to his book, and I'm like, oh my God, my son is a mouth breather. So he would drool on his pillow at night, which was the cutest thing ever, right? But not necessarily great for, the formation of your face. And so because he was a mouth breather, his tongue was in the bottom of his mouth instead of being at the roof of his mouth. When the tongue is at the roof of the mouth, it actually pushes the hard palate outwards. And it also increases the airway volume. So you're able to have a much better capacity of breathing when your tongue is at the roof of your mouth, because it pushes the airways, it pushes the palate outwards and opens up the airways. So that's why his teeth were too crowded, was because he was a mouth breather. So if we simply pull the teeth out, his palate wouldn't get any bigger. So he'd have a small, narrow airway and then potentially struggle with sinus issues and asthma and other respiratory problems in adulthood. So thankfully, I read that book. And when I went to the orthodontist, his most recent orthodontist before the one we chose now, I asked him, have you read this book? And he said, no. I said, okay, we're not going to work with you, because if you don't know this information, I shouldn't be telling you this. Like, you should know this. You should be telling me this. Right. So then we found an airway focused dentist that actually put a palatal expander in his mouth. We mouth tape him every night for the last few years. And we've optimized and improved his breathing. And now all of his teeth have come in. He's got a wide, beautiful smile, and he had an underbite. So now his bite and his occlusion is much more normal now. So, that was my other experience. So I've been impacted spiritually by breathing. I've been impacted, mentally by breathing. And then I've also been impacted, structurally by breathing. And what's interesting too, like, I know we're doing an interview here, but if you could see a picture of me from a few years ago, and if you look at a picture of me now, my facial structure has actually changed as well. So if you see a before and after picture, and I can send one over to you, you'll see that my palate has become wider, my face has become wider, and my breathing has become less restrictive as well. So it doesn't always happen overnight, but over time, the way we breathe changes our facial structure. And it's very important and informative to how our facial structure forms. So if you have young children who are still in the developmental stages of life, then it's very crucial that you pay attention to how they breathe, because it will completely change the rest of their life.
110%. And I think it was from you about 2.5 years ago that I heard about mouth taping for the first time. And it was the same thing, right? I'm Miss Functional Practitioner. I've got all the things down, and every single time I went to the dentist, I had a new cavity. I was pissed, and nobody could answer me. So then, you put the question out, right? And then the teacher appears, and then you're like, mouth breathing, tape your mouth. And I was just like, it took a couple of times of hearing that one before I was just like, that just looks insane. Like the thought of it also, made my anxiety go through the roof. And like the first night, I'm not gonna lie, like the first 5 minutes of it, it was tough. It was a lesson in really getting master over my mind, right? Mind over matter, because I was freaking out. But after that first night, I've been taping my mouth shut now for 2 years straight and haven't had one new cavity, no bad breath. My teeth actually feel strong. I was getting to a point where they were actually feeling like brittle, like they could just break. And it's
Right.
because they could have at the time, because they're not supposed to get dried out. If your saliva is like the ocean, your teeth are like coral, right? What happens if there's no ocean for the coral? They get dried out, they get bleached out. So, bacteria. So it's been a game changer in my health journey. So thank you for that.
Yeah, my pleasure. In fact, one of our mutual friends, I won't say her name for privacy reasons, messaged me. She left a beautiful voicemail. She said that just by making a few changes, like what you're describing, one in particular being mouth taping, and the second one being tongue scraping, it completely transformed her oral health, to the point where her hygienist even asked her, what are you doing different? Because you have like almost no plaque buildup. Your gums are looking healthier than ever. And those are the two things that they change. So simple, again, embarrassingly simple things like tongue scraping, mouth taping. I mean, how much easier does it get than that? And just for everyone's reference, I know there might be some people watching on video. When we talk about mouth taping, I think there's a spectrum of what people think that is.
Right.
Some people think that they've got to put duct tape over their mouth, and certainly you're welcome to do that if that's your thing. But I have a piece of tape here. We use a 3M micropore tape, and it's very inexpensive. It's like $3 for a 10-yard roll. And basically, you're just going to put a little piece like this vertically on your mouth. So I can still talk, okay? And I can still breathe through my mouth if I want to. The purpose of the mouth tape isn't to seal my mouth. The purpose of the mouth tape is to keep my mouth in a closed position, so I breathe through my nose. When I close my mouth, my tongue will naturally go into the roof of my mouth. And when that happens, it instantly relaxes me, and it prevents me from being able to breathe through my mouth. So if you put your tongue in the roof of your mouth and try to breathe through your mouth, it becomes impossible. So there's no need for us to seal our mouth with the tape. Just by closing our mouth, our tongue will seal our mouth for us, and at the same time also instantly relax us. And then it causes us to breathe through our nose versus breathing through our mouth. And you highlighted a couple of the benefits there. One is that our saliva gets dried out when we breathe through our mouth. and that changes the oral microbiome as well. The oral microbiome is responsible for helping us make nitric oxide. Nitric oxide, it kills viruses and bacteria on contact. It increases microcirculation and it dilates our blood vessels, helping us naturally lower blood pressure, fight infections, and also helps increase cognitive function and erectile function. So there's all these benefits of just simply breathing correctly. So putting our tongue at the roof of our mouth, breathing in through our nose is vastly different than breathing in through our mouth. No matter how dirty the air is that you're breathing, the outdoor air, it will always get dirtier if you breathe in through your mouth, because your mouth is the dirtiest part of your body. So not only are you telling your body you're under stress, you're dirtying the air, or you're polluting the air before it goes into the lungs, keeping your immune system jacked up all the time and high alert all the time, a nervous system that's on high alert all the time. Your brain is going to be scattered, right? You're just informing your body in a way that you don't want it to. When we breathe through our nose, on the other hand, our tongue is in the roof of our mouth, spacing out, expanding our palate, okay, putting us into a relaxed state, pressurizing the air. So we actually get 20% more oxygen when we breathe through our nose versus our mouth. That breath goes to the bottom of our lungs into the alveoli versus being stuck at the top when we breathe through our mouth. We moisture regulate the air. So now we're, creating the right moisture before the air goes into the lungs. We're filtering the air for particulates, right? That's why we have our cilia and our nose hairs. And we also expose the air to nitric oxide, thus killing bacteria. So essentially, breathing through our nose perfects the air. Breathing through our mouth disgusts the air. Like, it just makes it gross. And then if we think about it, our nose is like an intake. And if anything, our mouth is like an exhaust. So if you're huffing and puffing, if you're working out, try to keep breathing in through your nose and then out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. If you really have to go at it, then yes, there's going to be times where you breathe in and out through your mouth if you're sprinting or going all out. But as much as you can, try to maintain nasal breathing. And then if you have to breathe through your mouth, make sure you're blowing out instead of breathing in. And what's interesting about that comment is that the reason that we breathe, the urge for us to breathe, doesn't come from needing more oxygen, because we only absorb about a quarter of the oxygen that we breathe in with each breath. The urge to breathe actually comes from a buildup of CO2. So when you're exercising, the need or the urgency for you to feel like you need to breathe is going to come from that buildup of CO2. So it's not about taking more air in, it's actually about releasing the CO2. So exhaling is actually the most important part of breathing when we're feeling that urge to breathe, not inhaling more air.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, especially if you think about somebody who is, in a full blown like anxiety panic attack. They're breathing in, and they're not really exhaling. They're not really letting that go. So that totally makes sense.
Yeah, and they're just, because they're packing that CO2 into the bottom of their lungs, they're never really getting rid of it. And so our urge to breathe, that feeling that we need to take a breath, comes from the CO2 that's building up, not the need for more oxygen. So the best thing for people to do if they're having a panic attack is to not take deep breaths, right? That's not very specific, is to take full exhales. So fully exhaling the lungs is going to instantly give that person a sense of relief from that panic attack.
Absolutely. So can you show us a few different examples of some of your favorite breath techniques?
Yeah, sure. Of course. So there's a few. There's one that I really like because I think this one is something that instantly applies to everybody, and it's called a physiologic sigh. So the physiologic sigh is a great tool if you want to leave it in the car and not bring it into the house, or not bring it to work, right? Or if you want to kind of reset your nervous system between appointments, or if you're a clinician and you want to start your client appointments this way, this is an excellent tool, because what it does is it shifts somebody from being sympathetic, dominant, to being in a more parasympathetic state. And the way we do this, I'll walk you through it, and then we can do a quick demo. It's really simple. You'll sit up nice and straight and be nice and comfortable. And whenever we breathe, we almost want to imagine that the air is pouring into our lungs. So if I were to pour water into your lungs, it would fill up from the bottom and then work its way up. So we're going to take a nice deep breath in through the nose with our tongue at the roof of our mouth, breathing into our belly, visualizing that air filling up our lungs, starting from the bottom all the way to the top. And then at the very top, you're going to just pack a little bit more air with your mouth or your nose, holding it at the top, just feeling that fullness. And then on the count of 3, we're going to exhale with an audible sigh. 1, 2, 3. All the way out, all the way out. Okay, nice deep breath in through the nose. You can close your eyes to further relax. Pack a few more sips of air in. Hold it at the top, feeling the fullness. And on the count of 3, we're going to let it out again with an audible sigh. This time, let it all the way out. 1, 2, 3. Exaggerating the sigh, letting it all the way out. And now let's take the deepest breath you've taken all month. All the way in, filling up into the belly, into the chest, into the top of the throat, taking a few more sips, packing that air in, really filling those lungs up, holding at the top, feeling that fullness, and then on the count of 3, releasing with a full audible exhale. 1, 2, 3. All the way out. Okay, perfect. So by doing that, you're going to feel like
I
almost
feel
like
high.
yeah, you can get high on your own supply, right?
I love it.
So instantly, like within just 90 seconds, you're going to feel completely different. Closing your eyes kind of takes you to a whole new level because it just stops the outside stimulation from coming in. So that's called a physiologic sigh. The next breath I want to share is a Brahmari breath. So very similar, but this time when we exhale, we're not going to sigh. What we're going to do is we're going to hum and buzz as loud and as long as we can. This is known as Brahmari breath or buzz breath or bumblebee breath. And what this breathing technique does is because we're lengthening the exhale, it's going to get us into a more parasympathetic state. It's going to help us build up tolerance to CO2 because we're lengthening the exhale. And it's also going to help us decalcify our pineal gland, and it's going to help us increase nitric oxide. Buzz breathing increases nitric oxide by about 1,500%. So it's a great way to boost your immune system and your initial defense mechanisms against pathogens. So the way we do this is, again, sitting up nice and straight. And this is a technique you can do while you're driving. I mean, you could do this anywhere. So it's not going to cause lightheadedness. You're not going to pass out or anything. I do this at red lights. It's just kind of a great cue for me to do something like this. So a nice deep breath in. We're going to keep our eyes open or closed, depending on the environment that we're in. Tongue at the roof of the mouth. You're going to keep your tongue relaxed at the roof of your mouth, jaw relaxed. And now on the count of 3, when you exhale, you're going to hum as long and as loud as you can when you release. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And you can keep going, keep going. A lot of times the humming cuts off in the microphone. So I'll just walk you through it. Keep humming, and you're going to let it all the way out and go all the way to empty. And I like holding on empty. It's just until I feel that real deep sense of urge to breathe, because it makes me appreciate that next breath. And then when you take that next breath in, you're going to do the same thing. You'll take a nice deep breath in through the nose, eyes opened or closed, and then you'll release it with an audible, loud humming sound. And you want to hum as loud as you can. And the goal is to find kind of the frequency of your face. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. You want to feel your whole skull vibrating when you're humming like this, okay? And you're going to let it out as long and as loud as you can. So doing this technique is a great way for you to feel relaxed. It's a great way for you to increase nitric oxide, and it's a great way to build up CO2 tolerance. So I like this technique because it has multiple benefits. And here's what's interesting. Both of these breathing techniques that I shared with you are breathing signatures. So think of emotions, and then think of how we breathe after we experience those emotions. So if somebody has a traumatic emotional experience, they start crying, and crying is a form of breath work that actually helps us release the traumatic experience. So the reason we cry is to actually release. Okay, we release tears, but we also release. We send a message through that breathing signature to our nervous system to release. And so a lot of times people, it's not the trauma that affects us, it's how we deal with the trauma. So an animal in the wild, when it experiences an extremely stressful event, so if a gazelle is being chased by a cheetah, if it survives the experience, it finds a corner to go into and essentially starts having a seizure. And that outwardly looks like a seizure, but it's essentially releasing all of those chemicals, those fight or flight chemicals. Humans, on the other hand, keep those stored inside of us. We keep the emotions and everything stored inside of us instead of really letting go and releasing in the moment. So crying is a form of breath work. Sighing, right? When we feel a sense of relief, we sigh, right? So we experience the emotion and then the breath follows. But here's the thing: you can once you realize it's a two-way street, you can exaggerate the sigh, which is what a physiologic sigh is, and then you can create the emotion. So I can create a deep sense of relief just by changing my breath, because I already know my breath is going to be used by my nervous system to induce how I feel. When you experience something funny, you start laughing, right? And then you start releasing endorphins and other, neurotransmitters. Well, if I copy that signature of laughing and I just start laughing for no reason, but follow that same rhythmic pattern of breathing, within a couple minutes, I'm going to be laughing my butt off, just like I heard a funny joke, and I'm going to release the same chemicals as well. So you can experience the emotion and the breath will change, or you can change the breath and create the emotion and create the chemistry in your body. So there's all these different ways that you can do that. So the runner's high, for example, it doesn't come from running, it comes from breathing.
Mm.
When we have an orgasm, there's a breathing signature that goes along with it. When we're yawning, there's a breathing signature. When we're laughing, when we're crying, when we're sobbing, these are all breathing signatures. And essentially, that breathing pattern is informing our nervous system to then coordinate and tell it what type of chemistry to create in our body. So it's a two-way street. And once you know that, you can start utilizing it as a tool to actually support and help you.
Absolutely fascinating. You did not disappoint. I knew I've been to 2 of your breathwork classes at Mindshare. Like I knew I've been chasing you for a while. I'm like, I have to have him on because I just know how important, again, and once you just learn how to do these techniques properly, like it's incredible what doors it unlocks, the potential that unlocks in your body, mind, soul, spirit. Like it's absolutely incredible. So again, just wanted to thank you for taking the time to come out today. Where can people find you and more information, and like what are you working on these days?
Well, I think the gift that I love to offer everyone is something that I've put together called the Ultimate Breathwork Bundle, and it's kind of my mission to get this out there to as many people as possible. It's completely free, and in that bundle, what you'll get is a keynote presentation that I've done that goes a little bit deeper than we did today. There's a stop snoring bundle in there as well, so a complete guide on how to quit snoring, all naturally. There's a summary of my breathwork retreat that I went on with James Nestor, so you can learn some of the things I learned in there. I share that document with you. And I have a breathing signatures document, so I can teach you how to use different breaths to raise your body temperature, to improve digestion, to balance your hemispheres, to increase blood flow to the periphery, to increase blood flow to the neocortex. So there's techniques in there that I share with you that and really, like, I should be very forthcoming with this. This has been around for thousands of years, right? So I didn't invent any of this. I'm simply the messenger, and I hope that I'm explaining it in a way that makes it interesting and intriguing and applicable for people. And then the fifth resource that I offer in that bundle is a complete guided breathwork experience. So kind of what you experienced, but in a YouTube guided experience for people, so that you can plug your headphones in. I take you through breath by breath on exactly what to do, and then you can have profound, again, spiritual awakening experiences through that technique.
I got goosebumps. I'm so excited. I can't wait to dig into it. I had no idea all the goodies that were in there. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah. And so you just go to breathworkwithsachin.com, and it's all completely free. It's my gift to humanity.
Awesome. I'm pretty sure you've sent me those links, and so those will be included in the show notes so people can find that out. Also, that's going to be included in the show notes, as I alluded to, a giveaway. We give away a free Nikki on every episode, and so you'll want to go check out the show notes so that you can find out how to enter for that. And if you just want to not take the chances and get your own, make sure to go to wearenikki.com/podcast, and you'll put in BioBeats for a 10% off discount. We love our customers so much, and we just want to show our appreciation. So good luck to you. And thank you, Sachin, again, for everything that you shared with us today. It was such a blessing to have you on.
Thank you, Heather. It's such an honor and pleasure. I'm so excited to be able to share this information. And I just want to say this real quick. We just scratched the surface of the surface today. So this is a very fascinating topic. There's some great books and resources. Breath by James Nestor is one that I want to highlight. And The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McEwen. Those are two good books that people can look into if they want to go deeper as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Awesome. Everybody else, make sure to have a healthy day.
Hey, I'm Steve. I'm an engineer, a biohacker, and a dad, and I love my Nikki. I use 3 different programs on this one mostly. In the mornings, I run Energy Boost, which honestly is about the equivalent of a cup of coffee. I still have my coffee, but this does make a difference. After work, I run my stress and anxiety program, and that takes me from being like, task mode from work to really kind of chilled out dad mode, which is nice. And occasionally when I need it, I run the pain program as well. I actually tore my ACL last September, middle of September, and I was running again by middle of October. No surgery, no therapy, just the pain program once a day. So I've worked with red light therapy for several years now, and like I said, this is just about my favorite because it is so easy to use. I just put it on my wrist in the morning, run it all day, don't even notice it's there except for how I feel. So I love it.
A better life, guaranteed. If Nikki doesn't improve your wellness and sense of well-being in 30 days, send it back for a full refund. Free shipping, free platinum set of frequencies for life, 30-day money-back guarantee. Nikki, be better, do better. wearenikki.com.